Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Global Harmony House Insight. And tonight, I'm going to let our moderator, Sister Louise, take us into the program. Louise, are you there?
I certainly am, Brother Eric. Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody, to a very, very exciting evening. We're here to inspire tonight, and I am being joined this evening by someone you probably know if you are a regular customer around here. Sister Gayatri is internationally known and a beautiful, beautiful soul, wonderful speaker, writer. I can't say enough about her, but she's here with a very specific purpose tonight. In fact, she even changed our topic for the evening, realizing that today is a very special day on the Brahmin calendar. Today, August 25th, we celebrate the moving on, the leaving the body of Dadi Prakashami, who is now celebrating 15 years without us, without a body, I should say, although we all feel she's very much with us. And by the time you leave this evening, you will have a very, very beautiful idea of not only the beauty of a Shakti as our title for this evening's program says, and I'll define that for you as best I can in a moment, but you'll have a very beautiful idea of the best parts of all of the senior sisters around here in these parts who inspire you to come every week. And one of those sisters is Sister Gayatri, whom I believe, and someone said this morning very eloquently, embodies all the traits, many of the traits of a Shakti. So the theme for the month, and this is the conclusion, is love born from true understanding. Love born from true understanding. And we've explored that from many angles with a variety of beautiful sisters. But the topic tonight is serving as a Shakti. Correct me if you want to add to this, Sister Gayatri, but to me, a Shakti is that feminine energy and a goddess that derives her power from Shiv Baba, from God, not from human knowledge alone. It's someone whose vivacity and whose brilliance, in fact, her name translated means, I believe, shining diamond. Is that right, Sister Gayatri?
Well, it's Prakash, which is light, and Mani, which is jewel. So it's
Jewel.
the jewel of light.
The jewel of light. And we also know that she is an expert on tea. All of the teas.
You just found that out, yeah.
We just found that out. I had no idea what you meant this morning when you said that. And then I just watched the little video, which is charming. It's unity, and it's all of the teas that she talked about. The Shakti spirit, the energy of, and I know you don't use those words interchangeably, but I get confused about that. All I know is when some people enter a room, you feel it, you know it, it's in their smile, it's in their demeanor, it's a royal self-confidence, but most importantly, it's born, as the theme says, of love. And I have a quote that struck me that I found from Dadi Prakashmani, but I should tell you first that she is the person who took over with another Dadi, Mohini, when Brahma Baba left his body in 1969. And if you know anything about the history of the Brahma Kumaris, you can imagine how these young women mostly felt losing Brahma Baba in 1969. And she was instrumental in not only being the mother after Mama passed, being the one who held these young women together. She is the one who helped to expand the Brahma Kumaris into what it is today. She opened centers all over India. She went to Japan and spent 6 months studying the Orient and bringing centers everywhere she went. But the inspiration, to get back to the topic tonight, the inspiration came from her eyes, came from her smile. And I'm sure that Sister Gayatri can tell you a lot more about the beautiful soul that we call Dadi Prakashami, because she actually knew her and met her. Am I correct in saying that? I know I am, because she left her body in 2007. Is that right? So you were no longer a little girl. You knew her well. You even shared quarters with her. And I just am jealous almost, because I never met her. But I have met her, and I'll say this, I've met her through the beauty of the Brahma Kumaris sisters, and I'm very happy to bring Sister Gayatri with you this evening as the embodiment of so much of that. Personally, you know, I can just chuck this bio that you've heard for a very long time, but personally, Sister Gayatri has been my personal teacher on many occasions, whether she's talking to 1,000 people or a small group of 2 or 3, whether it's a breakfast chat or in a larger room, the beauty that she has brought to my life. And I have a good sense after this week of celebrating Dadi Prakashami, where a lot of that originated. And I just want to share with you one quote before I let Sister Gayatri take over. This is a quote, some words from Dadi Prakashami. As in a family, the basis of this organization is love, and it flourishes because it is nourished with truth and respect. And on another occasion, she said, only a powerful soul, a Shakti, can offer love. Only a powerful soul can afford to be humble. If we are weak, then we become selfish. These are things to ponder. If we are empty, we take. We need to fill up. But if we are filled, we automatically give to all, to everyone. That is our basic innate nature. So to learn more tonight, we have Sister Gayatri, who has dedicated her entire life to exploring the spiritual dimension of personal development and growth. I believe 47 years now, 48 years with the Brahma Kumaris, since you were a tyke. And she's also our representative, one of the representatives to the United Nations. And her focus has always been to use spiritual pursuits and phenomena to transform. And certainly in this day and age, I am benefiting so much. And I hope you are too, coming to us at least on this evening or taking the course, that you understand that we are serving the world. And in fact, she is the vice chair of the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sister Gayatri now. And thank you for coming to us this evening. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much, Louise. And you really described Adiji in a very beautiful way. And tonight, what I wanted to share was, I chose the topic serving as a Shakti because I think that when we look at our world today, we usually talk a lot about the leadership that that we are encountering, whether it's leadership at the political level or leadership at a social level or leadership through science and technology, or however we see leadership through religion. But one of the outstanding features, as we know, of the Brahma Kumaris is that we have women who are our spiritual leaders, but these women never, ever call themselves leaders. They always call themselves as instruments of God. And they always call themselves as servers. And so they are serving people, they are serving the world as instruments. Now, one of the meaning of the word instruments is someone who recognizes that who they're connected to. And who they're connected to, it's not just they're connected to that being, but they're also connected to the mission, the vision, and the purpose of what that being stands for. So serving as a Shakti means that these women, the Brahma Kumaris, serving at high positions within the Brahma Kumaris organization, they recognize that they are instruments who are there to fulfill a vision of world transformation, a mission that every soul must take their strength, their Shakti from God in order to allow for that transformation. And the purpose is that we must together change this world. We must together make this world a better place. So it's a collective purpose. And so this evening, because it is Dadi Prakash Mani's day, the day she left the body, and we always know that when the soul leaves the body, the soul will take another body. So she left the body, say 14 or say 15 years ago. So this is why we are saying she is in another body, and she's a teenager of 15 years old. But she continues serving at this higher level. And I would like to profile her today as serving as a Shakti, because I think as individuals who are serving, and serving doesn't have anything to do with a position. Serving is a way of being. Any way I happen to be, I am of service to someone or the other, to some purpose or the other, fulfilling some mission or the other, and doing it with a vision of selflessness, for instance, doing it with a vision, because innate to the soul is that desire to be of service, to serve. And so I thought that profiling Dadi today, Dadi Prakash Mani, would help us no matter what level we happen to be at in our lives. As you heard from Louise, Dadi Prakash Mani became the head of the organization in 1969 when Brahma Baba, the founder, left the body. And she served from 1969 to 2007 when she herself left the body. Now, throughout that period, from 1969 to 2007, the Brahma Kumaris grew exponentially from one country, which was India. By the time 2007, in 1969, we were in one country, India. In 2007, we had served 129 countries. And of course, it grew from 2007 to today, in which even though centers may not be officially established, we're still serving in those countries. And so in Dadi's, in terms of her period of heading up this organization, there was this exponential growth outside of India. And it was phenomenal that as a woman leading an organization in a very humble way, how she was able to do this and the cooperation and support she got for doing this. So what made her such a successful person? What made her into this, what we call Shakti? How did she serve being a Shakti herself? Because Shakti refers to that feminine form of power that comes from God, Shiva. But Shakti is also a goddess. And so how did she serve as this Shakti? and what were the qualities that she brought forth in her life, through which she was able to serve so effectively. So when you look at the word Shakti, there are actually 5 aspects of Shakti that are innate in the soul. And one is, Shakti means the power to be aware. So it is the power of consciousness. Shakti means the power of the heart. So it is the power of love. Shakti means it is looking at one's attitude and serving with a clean attitude, an inclusive attitude. Therefore, it is the power of benevolence. Shakti is being able to decide and discern, making choices, and that is the power to know, which comes from a divine intellect. And Shakti also means that one who is serving is one who is acting. And so it is the power to do the right actions at the right time. So it is the power to act. So this Shakti, serving with Shakti, means that I'm serving as a power of God that encompasses all those powers I just described to you. And Dadi, being the embodiment of a Shakti herself, because she was on her spiritual path. And on a spiritual path, you're constantly, she was practicing yoga, so she was constantly connecting to the source, to Shiva. And she was drawing on that power. And that power, you call it the Shakti flow. The Shakti was flowing through her, and it was flowing through her consciousness. It was flowing through her heart. It was flowing through her attitude. It was flowing through her intellect, and it was flowing through her actions. And so she became an instrument. She was called a spiritual leader, but she always saw herself as a humble servant, serving as a Shakti. So one of the first things I wanted to say about Dadi's characteristic as serving as a Shakti, before I go into her heart's signature, those signatures that I think are connected to her heart very deeply, is that serving as a Shakti and being connected to the source, God, Shiva, Dadi was able to do something in a very natural way. And I think it was because of this that she was able to reach out far and wide to 129 countries during her period or her tenure that she headed up the organization, because in a natural way, she had this ability. And I think this ability is something that we all need to have in today's world. We all need to develop this from in the way we serve others. And what she was able to do was to appreciate diversity, and she was able to accept differences. So Dadi was a master at this, but she did it in a very natural way. She never gave a lecture on the topic of appreciating diversity and accepting differences, but she exuded a natural feeling. And that natural feeling was coming from a fundamental practice that she was mastering through the way she was serving. And that practice was, she had that natural feeling that each soul was a child of God. And who she was serving was her own family. She was serving the human family. And they were all her brothers and sisters, because every soul is a child of God. We are all the family of humanity, and every soul is intimately connected to one source, whether they recognize it or not. That didn't remove this truth that she was operating from. And so in recognizing this connection, she was moved to serve at a higher level and at a greater level. She had a profound understanding of what serving with a selfless nature was all about. Now, we may call it altruistic service, we may call it whatever word we would use for that, but for Daddy, it was selfless. She didn't want anything out of her serving for herself. What she wanted was what was the, I would say, the Supreme Soul's vision. She wanted to accomplish Baba's vision. She wanted to accomplish God's vision. And so that was her deep understanding, that she was serving not to get something out of it, but she was serving so that everyone can get their inheritance. They can get something from God because it was their right. She was serving so that she can bring people to the awareness that they should claim their spiritual rights, and nothing and no one should stand in the way of them claiming those rights. She had a very unique art, and that art was she was able to appreciate when she stood in front of someone, she was able to appreciate the unique specialty that that person had and the unique specialty that that person brought and is offering in service to humanity. And so she accepted it. And in accepting their unique gifts that they brought, she was accepting their differences while appreciating that unique specialty. She felt that what was most important in life were relationships. And these relationships should be nurtured, and they should be nurtured with people from all different cultural backgrounds. It wasn't enough to just stay with your own and to stay with people that you are comfortable with in your own comfort zone and create communities just because you share some common interest and some common experiences. But she believed that relationships should be nurtured across the board, and they should be nurtured through the different cultural backgrounds. And because serving for her was all about making connections and forming relationships. At the end of the day, if someone were to ask her, well, Daddy, how was your service today? How would you grade yourself? She, I suppose, would say, well, I made so many friends. I built so many relationships. I made so many connections. So her recognition of that shared purpose, of the values generated through serving others, created in her a spiritual capacity that allowed for inclusion and supported an inner environment for her to appreciate and to accept others. Mm. And before I go, I ask Louise, maybe you'd like to comment on some of what I'm saying here. I just want to say that Dadi served as a way of being. She served by living her life as an instrument of Baba, of God. For her, there was only one leader, and that leader was God. And everyone else was God's child. So she served with an attitude and a vision of spiritual equality. So, Louise.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to back it up to the earliest days for a second, if I may, when she was just 15 years old and her father brought her to Om Mandali. It wasn't even the Brahma Kumaris yet. And what I had learned was that she had a vision of Krishna before seeing Dada Lakraj, before seeing Brahma Baba, before he was Brahma Baba. And she saw him as this divine presence. So I think of that, and I think of how Brahma Baba himself was faced, and it took him about 15 years to realize that he was faced with an enormous responsibility. And by having these visions of a much larger spiritual world, devout devotees, these special women had visions, the two of them had visions, and the visions were the prompt before the knowledge came along. And that's always struck me as, talk about specialties and talk about having a path carved for you. And sometimes things happen where we don't have much choice. So when you talk about the beauty of her, I like to think of that as the seed of where it all began as a very young person for her and as a much older person for Brahma Baba, but how all of these girls before Gyan needed to feel, to experience something before they could learn what I learned the past 7 years.
Well, she may have had a vision of Krishna, but her divine intellect wasn't limited to that vision of Krishna.
Right.
She never served as she was serving the people who worship Krishna.
Right.
She didn't serve because she saw Brahma Baba as Krishna. When I met Dadi, and that was in 1976, Dadi was already the head of the organization. I met her in the country I was born in, Guyana. And she embraced all the races there. You would never know that her spiritual origins began with a vision of Krishna. You would think that her spiritual origins began with a vision that went beyond anything that was physical. It went beyond recognizing that every child was a child of God. Every child, every soul had a potential within them for perfection and completion, to become like their father, like their supreme parent. And that was her attitude throughout, and that was why I feel serving as a Shakti gave us this intrinsic, innate ability, or gave her that intrinsic and innate ability to not appreciate just what she was seeing physically, but to appreciate the invisible while being present with the visible. You see, that's serving as a Shakti. A Shakti, you don't need to serve as a Shakti if you're just going to serve what you're seeing. What you see is what you get. But serving as a Shakti means I'm serving, recognizing the invisible as I look at the visible. And I feel that even though she may have had that, or the vision of Krishna, as you refer to it, and recognize Baba, recognize that through Baba, that the vision of Krishna was something that explained to her what perfection was all about. But she went beyond that, right? And she became very inclusive of others because she was recognizing that vision she saw in Krishna, I suppose, in everyone, regardless of where they were from. And so, of course, she started off, as you were saying, experientially. She had that experience, but Dadi's intellect was always divine. And that is why she was the number one that read the versions of Baba. And so if you notice her fascination when she began to talk about the teas, because she suddenly realized that these English words had, each one of them had a direct connection to leveraging a potential within the soul that was phenomenal. If we take one of those teas, and she repeated honesty, she said honesty, but honesty is a very good tea. So where was she going with that one comment? It meant that was maybe the hardest one to have, honesty. And so relax, enjoy that tea, savor that tea, because that tea is very important. So you see, the way her divine intellect worked was that, how could I take them to that level of deeper understanding? Because a Shakti, that is the main purpose of serving as a Shakti, to take someone to a deeper understanding within themselves so that they could have a realization of subtler aspects of life.
Yeah. So it lit her candle, and maybe she was surprised of the vision of Narayan, and then finding out that it is in fact Brahma Baba who will have that role in the new age, you know? So it's just fascinating to me. And the light that shone from her. Did you want to talk about that inner presence and how she reflected it in her being? You spoke about her being.
Yeah, Daddy was an extremely simple person. I mean, she came from a community that was called, of the Sindh community. It was called the Sindhi community. And she lived, then she came to India when Brahma Baba came to India. And they all settled in Mount Abu as the Brahma Kumaris community. But before that, they lived in undivided India, which was Pakistan, which was Hyderabad, Sindh. And then after the partition, they all had to come and be in India for safety purposes, but also because of what was happening politically in the country. And so as teenagers, they grew up with the discipline of spirituality because they were even looking at what was happening in the country from the light of their spiritual understanding and through the light of their spiritual presence. Because a Shakti means that through regular practice of meditation, of connecting to God, that practice generates in the soul that power that comes from God, and the soul accumulates it. So the generating of power means that I, the soul, I am in the consciousness of being a soul, and I'm connecting to the Supreme Soul. So that's the point of generating. And so then the power from the Supreme Soul, the longer I stay connected to that source, to God, God's power is radiating into me as light, and I am accumulating that. And the more I do that, it's the more I'm accumulating it. Now, when I serve, serving as a Shakti means I'm serving as a being. I am serving from that presence of the light that I accumulated within me through my practice of meditation. Now, that the way that works, serving as a Shakti, it's not just accumulated in the divine intellect as beautiful concepts that I will share with others. It's not what is referred to as words of truth. That is so, is that when a Shakti is speaking, whatever the Shakti speaks, her words or his words would ring. God, this is true. This rings true. This touches the truth in me. So it is, even though it's coming from a divine intellect, that divine intellect has the presence of God's light, of God's Shakti. So when the person speaks, like when Dadi speaks, her words have got that impact on people's divine intellects. So when something touches my divine intellect, I don't doubt it. I don't have to intellectualize it. I don't even have to say, let me go and research it. It just permeates my being and I accept it. And so Dadi, even before she speaks, and I call it her signature smile, even before Dadi says anything, it is as though when she is in the presence of her Shakti, when she's in the presence of someone else, the first thing she does is smile. And I always feel that, here, Dadi is, her signature smile is, she's smiling in the remembrance of God. And in so doing, she is engaging empathy with her smile in relation to the other. So that smile is touching someone else in a way that someone else is curious about her. But that smile is engaging their empathy. so that they could respond to her. It's not just a smile and you walk away, but they are responding back to her. And so I think in this way, she had this ability to have this in-depth knowing through the way she smiled at someone and the way they respond to her smile. She had this in-depth knowing of what other people's needs and beliefs are. And then what is it she should be respecting in the other? And I'll tell you something that happened here in New York. And Julia was reminding me of this, and it suddenly came right back to me in a very living way. Daddy was here visiting New York, and we had a program called Images and Voices of Hope at the Fashion Institute. And it was, I think it was in August, was it? I don't remember the month, or was it in September, just after the school opened. But anyway, she was here with us and we were having this program there. And of course, it was during the time they had sessions going on in the school, but it was during the mornings. So the program must have begun about 11 to 2 or something like that. We were having it. And so it was the time that these kids, these young kids, were on break. And, you know, they were all over, lounging all over the place and loud and, you know, talking and doing all of that. And Daddy arrived. And she started, you know, she walked in, the car stopped. So she was walking along 7th Avenue to come in to the Fashion Institute, the entrance that would take her up to the floor that we were having this program. And you see all these kids who were like in their early 20s, they suddenly became very still and they became so glued to this woman walking in with her white sari. And Daddy was walking slowly in and she was just smiling. And she was looking at each one of them and she was smiling at each one of them. And you could see how they were calming down and how they were becoming present themselves and how they were smiling back at her. But they just didn't smile back at her. What they did is that they started like clearing the path for her to walk. And then they started running toward the lift to get the lift for her. A couple of them opened, you know, pressed the button, the lift opened, escorted her in, took her up and escorted her to the place. So what was that? What was in her smile that touched something in those complete strangers of New York City, a younger generation, that got them to respond in such a respectful way to her? It's because she was in a way respecting them through engaging an empathy with them, engaging them with an empathy based on the way she just smiled at them.
A smile, yeah.
Yeah, just that smile.
Mm-hmm.
And so that smile, I always call it her signature smile. It was a smile that opened people's hearts, but also opened their hearts to a respect within themselves that they then expressed to her.
So after knowing her by studying, by looking, by whatever you did in the 60s or before, how was meeting her different for you personally? What did that feel like?
No, I met her first and then I got to know her.
Okay.
Yeah, so I met Daddy first and I met her as the head of the organization. And actually, I was also struck by her smile. I think the first thing that impacted me was her smile. And it wasn't just a smile as she arrived and she was smiling with everyone, but it was a smile that that gave me a sense of respect for myself. And the story was that when she arrived, I was given a duty to do. And the duty that I was given to do was when she arrived at a certain point before entering the house, the center there, I was supposed to pull the string and then a bag of petals would open and it would fall on her. And I'm standing there, I was like about 20 years old or something like that. And I pulled the string and nothing happened. And I got nervous and I'm pulling the string and nothing is happening. Now I'm not looking at her because she's looking at me and I'm too embarrassed because this act of the flowers falling on her wasn't happening. And so I stood there, and then of course it didn't happen. The door opened, she walked in, she was inaugurating the place. So she cut the ribbon, walked in, had the full program. About 2 hours later, she looked for me and she held my hand. And she walked me back to that space, to that same spot where that act of pulling the thread, the string, and getting the flowers to fall didn't happen. And she looked at me and she looked up at it, at this, this pouch hanging. And then she pulled it and it opened and the flowers fell on both of us. And then she looked at me and she smiled.
There's the empathy. There's the
empathy. And then she
right?
walked back and it was the end. So that left me with, it was the empathy, her smile. And she didn't say a word because she was speaking Hindi, I was speaking English. So she was speaking to me. But it left me with such a sense of, it's as though it corrected something. So the embarrassment changed into something like, it was that easy. Why didn't it happen? And so it was as though her smile removed the embarrassment that was left with me and replaced it with a self-respect that, we fixed it together, it happened together. And so that is engaging, I think, empathy, in which empathy is always, what is going on for another and how can I remove that feeling from the other? Yeah. Maybe not with words, but just with my presence, my spiritual presence coming through the smile that I would offer to them, and connecting them to their self-respect.
Yeah, and it's a sense of self, a kind of sense of self we don't see too much in this world. It's a sense of self with ultimate 100% humility.
Exactly.
As you said, we don't have titles, we don't celebrate positions, but you know it and you exude it, and you don't have to wear a sign on you that says I'm president or something, It's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. Very beautiful. So we always talk about the drishti and the eyes, but here you're talking about the smile.
Yeah, and she also had impact. Another thing, one of her signature, her heart signature of serving as a Shakti is her accessibility. Daddy never had bodyguards in that sense. She never had security guards. No one needed to guard her. And so she, for instance, she always wants to make herself available to people. So if you were to say, Daddy, you're going on tour and you are going, to these different countries, what would be the most important thing for you? She would say to meet with the people and to talk to them, to sit with them and talk to them would be the most important thing for me. And okay, you would say, okay, she would say that, but is that really who she is? Is that really, is she really someone who is that accessible to people that that would be the most important thing for her? Well, I would say yes, because when you went to Mount Abu, which was where she operated from in Rajasthan, India, what would Daddy do? Every morning, she would read the versions in the auditorium. She would read our morning versions, which we call as the Murli. And then she would walk from that auditorium after, and she would sit in the courtyard on a chair, totally accessible to everyone who wants to come and see her. And I always call it as Daddy's heart signature is drying her hair in the sun, because she always had her hair open and she would go and sit in the sun and the sun would dry her hair. So how did she make herself accessible to others? Was drying her hair in the sun. She would sit there and one after another, people would come up to her, Daddy, this, that, and Daddy would speak to them. And so she didn't have a desk. She didn't have a chair. She didn't have an office. That was how she met people. And I felt that for people who are serving others, who call themselves leaders, if they were to make themselves so accessible to their people, so that their people can come and tell them what's in their heart, they would have what I refer to as this wholesome and this authentic openness. And this wholesome, authentic openness is required from our leaders today. But in order to do that, we have to serve with fearlessness. We have to serve with our hearts, with that love for them. And we have to make the people we're serving see, as Daddy always did, that I'm here for you. And there's nothing between you and me. You could come directly and ask me something. You don't even have to make an appointment. I'm sitting in the courtyard. And so I feel that that was one of the signature of her heart. Her heart signature was to be accessible to people, to make it easy for them to speak to her, because she was there for them with an authentic openness. So I think that that was an incredible part of serving as a Shakti for Daddy.
Yeah. I would like to just at this point remind the audience that we do have a chat set up if you have questions or comments that are please appropriate to the topic and the dignity of this meeting today. Okay, so I can't believe that the hour is running late, so I'm gonna leave instead of asking you a question. I'd like to know what points you would like to hit before it becomes time to say goodbye to you. I know you must have your little jewels in there that you want to tell us.
Well, one of the things I'd like to talk about is Daddy's drishti. I think you touched upon it. And I always felt that there was magic in her eyes, in her drishti. And she would look at someone and you would feel that she knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of your entire life. And within that knowing that would come through her eyes, she would see the best of you. And it was almost as if in seeing the best in you, there was a promise that went with it, that is transmitted through her eyes. And that promise is, I will always look at you with this vision, and I will always make you feel the way you're feeling now, and I will uphold that for you. And so it was as if she made us aware of that deep worth that's within us, as well as the sense of our dignity, our spiritual dignity. And again, I go back to this visit that she had made at the Fashion Institute. Now, when all the kids escorted her up and they were also fascinated by this lady, she entered the room, and in the room, there were about 85 or so people from the media community of New York. We had brought together the people from the media of New York together from all levels, all sectors of the media, and they were discussing Images and Voices of Hope. And Daddy was giving the opening. She was their inspirational speaker. So she stood there, and David Cooper-Ryder from Case Western University, who is the father of appreciative inquiry, I mean, he's the one who developed that methodology, he was introducing her. And so, you know, he's a very, very gentle person. And so he then introduced Daddy. And after introducing her, Daddy stood there in pin drop silence. and looked at every single one of those reporters, journalists, those media professionals, right in the center of their forehead. And she gave them the drishti, as we call it, that divine look. And she must have done it for 15 minutes. At the end of it, the entire room changed. And one of the people after said to us, "What did Daddy do?" That we were all in tears. So she brought them to tears, but it wasn't tears of sorrow.
No.
It was tears of a release that she took away from them, because you know how highly stressful this job is of the media community. And it is as though she recognized that through her drishti, she would draw from them a release. She would release them from some of the stress they were carrying. And so when they felt that release happening, it brought them to tears, but it was tears of thankfulness. And then the first thing she said to them was, "Thank you for serving the way you serve." And whoever thanks the media for doing what they're doing. I mean, they're the most highly criticized people, right?
Yeah.
And so that also opened their heart. So after that, whatever she was going to say, Louise, they were ready to hear.
That's right.
They were ready to hear. And I think that people who serve this way, and I think including Gandhi, will be highly criticized. And we have to look at, when we look at people and criticize them, are we projecting something from within ourselves? Are we releasing a frustration on these people that is troubling us ourselves? So we have to be very careful, because I think serving as a Shakti means, before you open your mouth and blame somebody else for something, you know, who is going to throw the first stone? Someone who hasn't done it, or who hasn't thought about it. And so, you know, when you think something evil about someone else, you've already tarnished yourself with it. And so I think we have to be very, very careful. So serving as a Shakti means, look at yourself first before you blame someone else, or you throw that first stone. And so I think we have to be very careful. And this is what she was doing. She just removed whatever it was. And she gave them that love. And that for me was the Shakti of the drishti, the signature of her heart.
Yeah.
The love.
That's a wonderful point. And we do that. I want to just bring it back for a second. I think something else, what resonated in me, was going on when she had that silence. We get so into our roles and we start believing that's who we are. And all we hear around here is treat people as though you're looking at the soul, you're seeing the soul. She's actively doing it. And what she did was take all of these photojournalists who are at a very big occasion, and all of these people who are very much into their roles, male, female, journal, whatever they're doing. And she put a full stop in that moment and gave them the equivalent of a month's worth of meditation, something they may not do on their own. But you know, like she couldn't avoid her role in life, and Brahma Baba couldn't avoid his, because it's too great in that moment. She did that 15 minutes and within 30 seconds, I bet.
Yeah, no, but she held that silence for about 15 minutes. She didn't speak.
Yeah.
All she said after was, "Thank you for serving the way that you do."
Yeah.
I think that was all she said. She didn't say much to them, but she stood there and held them. It was a mother walking into a room and embracing her children.
And they will hold that moment,
and
no matter
holding
what
them
kind of...
for as long as they wanted her to hold them.
Yeah.
And then
they'll take that with them the rest of their lives. Each individual in that room, no matter what their childhood was like, will remember her as the mother in that, with the pure the
Yeah,
purity
because
of it.
when you are traumatized or when you're going through stress, you don't want people to talk to you. You may say to them, all I want you to do is to hold me.
Yeah.
Just hold me. Just give me a hug. So that's what she did, but she did a spiritual hug. You know, she just stood there with her presence of the Shakti and she served them. She was the mother that held them, and she held them with that love from her eyes.
These are wonderful anecdotes because the Murleys themselves every day, and you as a teacher sitting up there are always stressed. It's not just the knowledge in your head, it's the experience of it. And
Yeah.
you've given us very deep experiences of what she really truly was as a Shakti and as someone who never let go of God's hand ever in anything she did. It's 7:55, and I know you wanted 5 or 6 minutes to guide us in a meditation, and I think it's that time.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's just go like Daddy, and just with our eyes, let's focus on ourselves as these beings full of Shakti, full of that power that comes from God. Serving as a Shakti means that I have the power of awareness. The power of awareness is the consciousness that I'm in. I'm a child of God. I take power, Shakti from God, and I serve my family, the family of humanity. Serving with Shakti means that I serve with the power of my heart. The flow of Shakti comes from my eyes. And with the love emanating from my eyes, I embrace my brothers and sisters with spiritual love. The power of Shakti is a clean attitude. It is an attitude of benevolence. A benevolent attitude is to appreciate and to accept. The power of Shakti is a divine intellect. An intellect that is able to make connections and to form relationships. I, the soul, let me be like Daddy. Let me serve as a Shakti. Let me serve through my presence of divine light. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. You see, what I just realized, Sister Gayatri, what you've done tonight for us is define the ineffable. You put into words what can't be put into words. And by so doing, you became the embodiment of everything that you praised in her this evening. She is one of the leaders you may never see again, but you'll look like her tonight. And I just want to thank you for coming to us this evening. Everyone, please join us next week. I know the hour is late. I just want to say we'll start with a brand new theme next week, and new speakers, old speakers, whatever. Did you want to say something? You want to say goodbye to everybody? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And it was lovely being with you, and good luck. But remember, you're a Shakti, so serve as a Shakti.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for modeling it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Always.
Sister Gayatri. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Daddy Prakashmani. Thank you, everyone who has come today. May you take the Shakti and smile it well, see it and use it. See you next week at Global Harmony House Insight. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Brother Eric. Good night. Om Shanti.